Thanks so much. A pleasure to be here, of course. Boa is here, but for me, Boa was there 33 years ago, I think it was, when they published the first book of mine that they did. And I had met Al Poulin and Boo and their daughter Daphne in 1971. So for me, Boa has really been around not only for all of its 35 years, but for really 4 decades now, and it's lodged itself in here. So a real pleasure to be with all of you this afternoon. Here's one new poem that I'll start with. 60s Sonnet. I have become handsome in my old age. You're cute, smiled Denise, breaking up with me, but cute is all you'll ever be. Denise, who was so wrong. I miss our Woodstock nights. 500,000 thumb-flicked Bix, coaxed to climax by God's thwopping bass, hissing soppy alms against the cloud mass. A drenched, naked hillside, soulless and pure, zonked, mud-caked, Yanomami, immature. I forgive Sly and the Family Stone. I slept through Santana, dreaming future exes who might love me despite my rage. I have grown lonesome in my afflictions. I have become handsome in my old age. Here are some poems from Gospel Night with this beautiful, beautiful cover that Daphne Poulin designed. White Stork. Such jazzy arrhythmia, the white stork's plosive and gorgeous leave-takings suggest oracular utterance where the blurred Danube disperses its silts. Then the red-billed, red-legged creatures begin to spiral, to float among thermals like the souls, wrote Pythagoras, praising the expansive grandeur of black-tipped wings of dead poets. Most Eastern cultures would not allow them to be struck, not with slung stone or arrow or later lead bullet. Birds who have learned, while living, to keep their songs to themselves, who return to nests used for centuries, nests built on rooftops, haystacks, and telegraph poles, on wooden wagon wheels placed on cold chimneys by peasants who hope to draw down upon plague-struck villages such winged luck. If the body in its failure remains a nest, if the soul chooses to return, yet not one stork has been born in Britain since 1416, the last nest renounced when Julian of Norwich, anchoress, having exhausted all revelations, took earthly dispensation, that final stork assuring, even while vanishing, quote, "A sin is behovely, but all shall be well." This poem takes place in Costa Rica on the Pacific coast, in Tamarindo, just below the Nicaraguan border. And I think of myself as a savvy traveler, but I did something very stupid, which was I wanted to cross the river there, the Savegre River. I explain why in the poem, and so I walked upriver looking for a bridge and didn't find one, and I thought maybe I could walk across the river. And so I entered it and started walking when I was about chest level and wasn't nearly halfway across. I could feel the water pulling me out, and so I thought I'd better get back to shore. And when I turned to get back, there were a number of kids on the bank who were waving to me and yelling in Spanish, and I waved back. And that night, when I was in a restaurant, a guy came over to me and said, you the one who was in the river today? And I said, yeah. And he said, that was really, really stupid. He said, that's where, he said, the sharks come in to feed on the river fish, and where the crocodiles, the caiman, come to feed on the ocean fish. So I felt pretty lucky. Yeah. Stupid and lucky. Rio Savegre, where the Pacific seized the river, tugged limbs, then torso toward murkier waters. I turned back, struggled briefly, tore a path through the 1,000 frayed sienna ribbons. I fought toward scabbed boys jabbering Spanish, waving skinny arms like burnt tinder sticks. I'd wanted to cross to the cloistered beach where turtles oared ashore to bury eggs. That night I learned what the voices counseled, where salt and fresh waters tumble and stir, a shark and crocodile asunder together. I was lucky to leave that turbid bath. Now I awaken when church bells worry to recall my shade taken by current, riven on the water's skin, wrenched apart black rag by black rag, as the soul is torn, the heart bitten, as I stumble away, too dumb to know which creatures seethe below and how whitely the body must beckon. I spent 5 weeks in Valletta on Malta back in 2005 and saw the painting there by Caravaggio, The Beheading of St. John, which he painted in 1608. It's an unusual painting for several reasons, one of which is mentioned at the very end of this poem, but it was also very easy for me at that time to connect the painting with the war that still continues. Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio. The Baptists beheaded Arab fashion, throat slit with the long sword, then the gristly tendons of the neck severed with the knife still sheathed behind this executioner's back. The beheading's not quite over yet, like the tape loop broadcast on CNN. Al-Qaeda zealots crisscrossed with bullets, posing with the blindfolded journalist before the anonymous assassin steps forward to undertake his righteous labor. On websites, the tape winds forward to the crass theatrical brandishing of the skull, another obscene gesture in a war targeted toward spectacle. 2 prisoners gape from their somber cell. The girl servant grips the copper platter upon which the head will be presented to Salome. Blood puddles the stone floor where, a swirl, it twists into the artist's only surviving signature, Michael, to confess his helpless complicity. A sonnet, Dead Iraqis. On our balcony, 2 Iraqis are eating a dead Iraqi that has ruffled in rain for 3 days. 1 more dead Iraqi beginning slow dissolution until only feathers remain. Some plague has infected the city. Dead Iraqis litter rooftops, and sick Iraqis like ripped petticoats remain underfoot, dazed, or remain on roadways till crushed by trucks. Those dead Iraqis are eaten in ragged cotillions. Soon more dead Iraqis befoul schoolyards and parks. Children kick dead Iraqis like soccer balls, explosive bursts of feathers, dead Iraqis pinwheeling in air where almost no live Iraqis remain. For the first few days, it didn't register. Dead Iraqis high and low, everywhere you looked, dead Iraqis. Then, like a poem startling in its clarity, oh, the Iraqis, dead. This poem has an epigraph from Pete Townsend of The Who, and which you know probably, talking about my generation. Lying awake. The fan makes a tisking noise like a clock's, only faster. Again I lie awake. Many years pass in the hours of one night, each replete with its routine tragedies, loss of parents, divorce, a slipped vertebrae. In 1960, for the spring pageant, my male classmates and I clamored to be a St. Francis of Assisi, arms outstretched, less veiled a scarecrow than living a crucifix, bearing its worshipful burden of birds, or the once dead Christ, who woke that Sunday to find no one keeping vigil, no one. So to amuse himself, he spooked a few apostles, gazed once more upon his flesh, then rose, bidding only the birds goodbye, the birds that generations later pecked crumbs from the folds of St. Francis's robe. Goodbye, the ceiling fan seems to echo with its next lopsided revolution, like this lapsed Catholicism leading nowhere. Across America, I hear the stuttered breaths of my generation, of those who lie awake, alone, even with one more insomniac lying close, lucky enough to have suffered only those common misfortunes of our own tribes devising. So shut up, please, for Christ's sake. Try for one night not to think of horrors, our cities on fire, My Lai, the towers, all our inherited atrocities. Forget Mary Turner, 8 months pregnant, strung by her feet in Valdosta, Georgia, soaked with kerosene, ignited, a torch, witnessing swamp candles dimmed their phosphor, belly slit open, the wound in her side, her body riddled with bullets, with jeers, a spilled Jesus stamped into mud by boot soles. Shut up and go back to sleep's hard labor in the whir and whap of blades thudding air, their rhythmic recital, their unceasing keening, righteous whimper, abandoned a prayer. Come, kingdom, come, kingdom, come, kingdom, come, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Here are just a few love poems. This poem takes place in Romania in 1989. That was the year that the revolution took place, and on Christmas Day, their dictator, Ceausescu, and his wife were executed by firing squad. The poem mentions, well, the poem is based on an experience of my wife, who now writes her own poems, and so I don't go near her material. But I asked her if I could write about this early on. She would go to the library to read American books then, but you couldn't borrow books from the library. You had to read them while you were there, and there was no heat in the library. And while there was electricity, there were no light bulbs. And so in order to go and spend the day there, she would have to wear gloves with holes in the fingers to turn the pages, and she would have to bring her own light bulb and carry that to the library to read. So this poem mentions the novel Ethan Frome, you may know, and it also mentions, indirectly, a novel by Toni Morrison, from which this poem borrows its title, Beloved. She cradles the rag-swathed 40-watt bulb like a hand-painted egg in woolen gloves, with holes scissored at forefinger and thumb for turning pages in the icy nook. The library looms beyond gritty drifts, past blood-soaked slats and the empty, grease-glossed hooks beckoning from butcher shop windows. Last week, she began reading Ethan Frome, a donated copy, some Fulbright profs, and felt that New England a snowscape her own, but the volumes vanished between visits. She hopes Ethan chose love over duty. Still, she can't bring herself to steal a book. Ceausescu won't be shot until Christmas. She scours shelves for American novels, Overhead bulbs fizzled out years ago, then finds the harrowing tale of a slave that makes her bulb seem to surge with power, hour after hour in the cold cubicle. A decade later, she'll meet the author. 16 now, she can't anticipate much except to be loved as she loves these books. I'll read just two more, both love poems. This is a very different kind of love poem called Cannibal. Among the survivors of the Donner Party, idiom's black sense of humor, who developed a secret taste for flesh flaked between the fluted bones of the wrist, who for organs, a charcoal tongue or poached heart. Years later, in San Rafael, who wept at night for a morsel of human cheek, for one finger to gnaw himself to sleep. In the next century, Jeffrey Dahmer ladles a young man's head into a pot, the water simmering, lightly salted, new potatoes, leeks, and scrawny carrot floating past eyes uplifted toward heaven. Chestnut hair flutters slightly like eelgrass. Who can fathom such inexplicable hunger? How my mouth covets your body, teeth grazing buttocks, shoulders, each nipple. How I want to cradle you inside me as you clasp me within to celebrate our secular, primeval communion. What can I do but inscribe this desire bite mark by bite mark across sweat-glossed skin? What can I do but write these poems for you? Ribbon worms know no language but hunger, so lacking all food will feed on themselves. And this last poem is from the previous book, Darling Vulgarity. It's a sort of truncated sonnet. It's seasonal. It's called Wedding Dress. That Halloween I wore your wedding dress. Our children spooked and wouldn't speak for days. I'd razored taut calves smooth, teased each blown tress, then lipsticked, mascaraed, and self-amazed, shimmied like a starlet on the dance floor. I'd never felt so sensual before. Catholic schoolgirl and a neighborhood whore. In bed, dolled up, undone, we fantasized. We clutched and fused torn twins who'd been denied. You were my shy groom. Love, I was your bride. Thank you very much.